Well, Chris, this will be eventually available.
Okay, Alan, please get ready to get started.
Sure. It'll be available right
No,
after this.
let's pause. Let's wait. Okay, with the
Okay.
introduction.
Okay.
And now stay tuned for another original Studio B production right here on the Voice 17104.com.
Welcome, my brothers and sisters, to the Richard James Show on 17104, The Voice.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome again, my friends and my brothers and my sisters, to the Richard James Show. It's another day, another week has passed, and a lot of things are happening in the society today. As a matter of fact, one very important thing that's happening is that today is a special a presentation, special holiday for International Women's Day, and that's the thing that's going on throughout the country. But we're going to do something very, very special, and we have two distinguished gentlemen that are here to make presentations. Now, some of us old timers like myself will remember a president by the name of John Fitzgerald Kennedy. John Fitzgerald Kennedy was president of the United States. He won the election in 1960, served 3 years as president. And one of the major things that he was concerned about was doing things for people that had needs, not only in this country, but throughout the world. So he developed a program, an organization, a part of government they're called the Peace Corps. And he did a lot of good work. And he only served 3 years as president because he was assassinated uh, in his office. Now, everyone knows about the assassination of John Fitzgerald Kennedy. But a lot of people do not know about the kinds of programs that he was able to develop. Much of the things that were accomplished, even in the Lyndon Baines Johnson administration, was the brainchild of John Fitzgerald Kennedy. As a matter of fact, he wrote a book called Profiles in Courage. Profiles in Courage was a wonderful piece of work, noted work. As a matter of fact, organizations throughout the country had presentations and extended awards on profiles and courage. But let me introduce you to some friends of mine and a gentleman that I've just met that I'm very pleased that's here. First of all, I want to start out with Mr. Alan Olson. Alan Olson was a member of the Peace Corps many years ago. Greetings, Alan. It's great to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, and also we have a gentleman here, Mr. Glenn Bloomhurst. Is that correct?
That's
Mr.
correct.
Mr. Bloomhurst is the head of the what's it called, Peace Corps Association. Mr. Bloomhurst, is that it?
The National Peace Corps Association.
Fantastic. And I understand you guys are, in terms of your organization, is celebrating, what is it, 60 or 61 years of existence? Is that correct?
61 years this year, yes, sir.
That is absolutely wonderful. So we have two distinguished gentlemen that participated in the program. So what I want to do is and I'm going to have them do assess their own introduction. And I'll just start out with Alan. Alan, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about why a young man in the United States who was graduated from college decides to commit to a volunteer program after graduating, and maybe also go overseas and do some things. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we go to Glenn and have him tell me a little bit about himself and his involvement in the Peace Corps.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Richard. This is Alan here, Alan Olson, and I grew up on a farm in Plato Center, Illinois, just west of Chicago, about 50 miles. And during my farming time, I found that I was really more interested in the mechanical and the electrical aspects of it. So when I heard about Illinois Tech, I decided to go there for college. So I went to Illinois Institute of Technology in Chicago and a major in electrical engineering. And in my senior year, then that's when I heard about the announcement of the Peace Corps by JFK. And that was sort of immediately appealing, partly because I didn't want to immediately get stuck in just an ordinary engineering position, but I wanted to do something a little more adventurous and all that sort of thing. It was very appealing. It had been my first time overseas, but overall it was very appealing. Of course, JFK's presidency, I think, candidacy was quite interesting. So I applied about the time I graduated in early '62, and had a job there on campus for a while. And so when I got an invitation to Malaysia, I was really excited for that. And wow, I got to be able to go to a far, far away place, and a tropical place. Well, training was only 25 miles down the road, and it was in the middle of the winter. So it was a surprise, but that's what I wanted to do.
Fantastic. Okay, Mr. Glenn Bloomhurst, give us a little overview of your association and your experience in the Peace Corps. We'd like to hear from you, sir.
Very happy to do so. First and foremost, so thank you so very much for inviting us to be a part of your program today, the Richard James Show. We're just really elated that Peace Corps is being spoken about today. You know, sometimes when you say Peace Corps, people will say, Peace Corps, is that still around? And it certainly is. After 61 years now, it still is around. It's around the world and doing well in so many wonderful places. And we'll be sharing more with you about that. I'm also a farm kid from central Missouri. Grew up on a small farm and knew that the world was bigger than the horizons that I could see. And I felt it was important to somehow learn to expand my horizons, and also with just by my faith, inclination to serve others and seek adventure. I'd say were kind of the motivational factors for me. But as most of us will say, that Peace Corps experience is life transforming. So I see the world from a whole different perspective now, with a whole different worldview. People from other countries and places and languages, for me, I see from a whole different perspective than I did before I joined the Peace Corps. But I finished my college degree in agriculture, and with my wife, Kathy, and I went to Guatemala in the Peace Corps. And we served for 2 years, and then extended for an additional third year. And then actually ended up staying in Guatemala for another 3 years, working in some other projects. So we spent about 7 years of our early lives there in Guatemala.
Wow.
And also spent some time in Bolivia, 10 years, and other places around the world working. And more recently here, a few years ago, ended up at National Peace Corps Association. And National Peace Corps Association is like an alumni network for the Peace Corps agency. So when we go overseas as volunteers, we're going as volunteers with a federal agency, the Peace Corps agency. When we return from our service after a few years abroad, then we're part of this national network of over 240,000 people who have served in the Peace Corps in those 61 years. And that's what National Peace Corps Association is. It is the alumni network of all who have served, both staff and volunteers, over all those years.
Fantastic, fantastic. I see you gentlemen have one thing that's in common, in addition to Peace Corps, is you both served with your wives. I know Alan was his wife, and you were with yours. I think that makes it even very, very, very special. Okay, well, let me just kind of start out with my friend Alan Olson, who I've gotten to know real well in the last couple of years. Alan, now you just gave us some information in terms of your graduating from college, you making a selection. Now tell us about your first first adventure was in Malaysia. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Can you tell us something about the Malaysia experience, sir?
Sure, can do. Just a quick one on the Peace Corps is 2 years. It's nominally roughly 2 years of overseas work, voluntary experience, plus 3 years or 3 months of training, with about 50% of the emphasis on language, which in that case was Malay. Fortunately, Malaysia has only one major language, and that's Malay besides English. And for me, that was the first time around. I'd never had any language training in high school or in college, unless you call partial differential equations a foreign language. But among the world languages, it's one of the simpler languages, actually. It doesn't have any present or past tense. It doesn't have any female or male gender nouns list, and doesn't have any complications of that sort, and the spelling is relatively straightforward with this sort of thing. And so I picked that on pretty well. But yeah, I went to I went and going to Malaysia. I was still single then, and I ended up staying 2.5 years there. I was teaching math, and so they call it maths, actually, maths with an S. That's the English way of doing it, and physics there. And to show some let's see.
You're going to show some videos now?
Yeah, I thought I'd show some videos here.
Okay, yeah, let's announce them. These are some videos.
Well, no
Alan,
video.
just a minute. These are some videos that Alan will show his experience in Malaysia, and also they think that he was also in Uganda. Go right ahead, Alan. You take it from here.
Okay, yeah, they're not videos. They're
Slides.
they're
I'm sorry, I
slides.
used the wrong
Slides,
word.
okay.
Forgive me. Go ahead. Show what you have.
Early introduction to the Peace Corps for a moment. It's volunteers working overseas, and they have 3 goals as JFK put out there. One is to live and work in the local culture and provide the needed skills in that country. And the second one is to give the host country nationals, the people you're working there, the opportunity to actually know a real American, be in there and get some idea of what America is like up close.
Okay, now this particular video is in Uganda. Is that correct?
No, well, this particular one here is just Peace Corps in general, the goals of the Peace Corps, not just for Malaysia. Later, I went to Uganda. I'll cover that a little bit too.
Okay.
And JFK says, he quoted this, and the third goal is to bring the world home. And that's what we're doing right now. Actually, we're telling people about Peace Corps. We're telling people about our experience. We're telling them a little bit about Malaysia and this sort of thing. And so here's a picture of me and the family I was staying with. This was an unusual, in those days, an unusual opportunity, because the school wanted me to stay in the hostel across the street, which I eventually did, but I had 3 months with his family. And so this is Aziz, the 14-year-old there, and the father, Johari. A little bit of culture here is that this is known as Aziz bin Johari, and that's the Malaysian way of putting the father after the father takes the last name of the son. And the rest of and this crazy looking fellow here, that's an earlier version of myself here. And the young woman here was out visiting me as she goes around visiting various volunteers just to see how they're getting on. The Peace Corps.
The slide is not moving, Alan.
Pardon?
We're still in the same picture. Okay.
Yeah, it's saying. Oh, are you seeing different pictures? Aren't they sliding up?
No.
Oh boy, bummer. You're not seeing me in a sarong or something like that?
No, we're seeing you, the young man, that the one you just identified. And it says down at the bottom, new house in Uganda. The slide's not moving.
Oh, boy. I'm not sure what's going on here, to tell you the truth.
Okay, well, let's continue to give us the information. There you go.
Okay, that's the one. Okay.
There we go.
Sorry, I selected the
Beautiful
wrong
picture.
one. Yeah. So these, I guess this one here wasn't up before. This is the goals I was talking about before. And so this is the third one, to bring the world home. And here we are. We're bringing the world home. And so, okay, thanks for letting me know. We had that same mix up
It's
before.
okay. Let's keep going. You're doing well.
Yeah, this is the family I'm staying with. And here I am with Johari, and this is the classic sarong, actually.
I like that.
Whole thing. It's just a tube of cloth which you wrap around like this. In fact, I slept in one of those last nights just to get in the pattern here. And this is the father, Johari, and
Okay.
I am with Aziz and myself there. looks like I've got a bit of a frown. I'm not quite sure what that is. But curiously, I was staying with this, and it was a very nice opportunity because the hostel where I was supposed to stay wasn't ready yet, and so I was staying in a hotel. And after a month or two, Peace Corps said, "Hey, why are you staying in a hotel? What's going on?" So they found, not Peace Corps, but another local Peace Corps volunteer found this family to stay in, and this is only a 2-bedroom house. Aziz and I shared 1 bedroom. The parents rode the next bedroom back, and the other 4 children, young children, slept in the hallway, a rather wide hallway between them, and then a kitchen way in the back. So it's a pretty small house. But somebody pointed out, I starting in light is Walofun Almari Suda Pano Dengan Baju. What that means is, even though the closet is completely full of clothes, you can always squeeze in 1 more handkerchief. And so I was the handkerchief squeezing in. And
Right.
here I am with my primary form of transportation there.
All right.
And that's fairly, I don't know, I think it's still pretty much the standard pattern for Peace Corps is that they really don't want you driving cars or trucks around or having your own car, because the idea is you're supposed to work within the culture, and most of the people there don't have, and in the countries we're working in, most of them don't have cars, maybe motorcycles at best, but for several reasons, I think that's a good idea. So they actually shipped this is a Schwinn bicycle of all things. They sent it all the way over. They're single speed, and going cycling up to the school was about 2.5 miles. Part of it uphill, so I traded this in on a Raleigh bicycle available then. It was 3 speeds, so I could have some shifts going up the hill and all that.
Beautiful.
So then after this, I when I finished up, when the hostel was finally ready, I moved up there, and this is what the class looked like there. That was their class picture. Unfortunately, I didn't have an awful lot of pictures to put up here, but this is the Form 5 class that I was teaching. And Form 5, that's by the British system. That's essentially a senior in high school. And, you know, I came to realize that I think Peace Corps hesitates to send over just a regular American qualified teacher that has experience teaching in U.S. schools, because I think it would be very frustrating to be trained in the American system of education. But this has the British form of education, which means that, okay, you can give exams in your classroom and give them grades and all that, but it doesn't really count for much, except to prepare them for the upcoming examinations. They have examinations right after high school, well, right after primary school. They have 1, and then they have 1 at Form 3, and then they have a number at Form 5. Form 3 is sort of like a sophomore in high school, and Form 5 is like a senior. So they have a standard central organization, examination organization that all these kids have to take, and it's only if they pass and when they get their grade, that sort of determines how good a job they can get and all that sort of thing. And I think an American teacher would have a hard time adjusting to it. I certainly knew my subject and all that. Oh, they have a syllabus all filled out, that all the things you're supposed to cover line by line and all that. So it's a much more essentially connected.
How many years did you do that, Glenn?
I was there 2.5 actually. Normally it's 2, but when I ended up the first, or I was going to stay there for the first 6. I got there in June of 63, and so I finished that, and then 64, and I thought, you know, this is really not very long, and these kids are getting along pretty well, so I extended a year. That's what you can do in Peace Corps. They assign you nominally 2 years, but even as Glenn did, he extended his time, and I think there's nominally a 5-year limit. They don't want you in the Peace Corps more than 5, but yeah, you can do that. And of course, so I was 2.5 years actually there. I ended up at the end of 65, and their school year is pretty much congruent to the calendar year, as opposed to ours. Our school year, you know, goes from September through May.
Right.
Not that that's a big. And here's another curious thing. This is reminiscent of one of the things that one of the students came up. Hey, Mr. Olson, I'd really like to learn how to do photography and that sort of thing. So the school, when I approached them with that request, they actually built a little dark room just outside the science lab, actually. It's just a small thing, about half the size of a single car garage or something like that. But it was dark, definitely, and the kids really caught on to that. And of course, I didn't know very much about developing films. I mean, they really wanted to get it, not just the taking of pictures, but developing it as well. And that's something they wanted to do. So that was one of the several excuse me, one of the several things I did there. And when it turns out that I hadn't been back to Malaysia until, and I hadn't been in very much contact, because much more contact with Uganda, which I'll tell about later.
Okay.
But Malaysia, by the way, Malaysia, if you're wondering, is that long peninsula right below Thailand. So it comes down between Thailand, and then down below is that long east-west string, which is Indonesia. And actually, when I went over there, it was Malaya.
Right.
When I came back, it was Malaysia.
Right.
They joined together, actually, and I was there when they converted. What they did is Malaya went together with Singapore, Sabah, and Sarawak. Sabah, Sarawak are on that long Indonesian island there, long, almost a continent there. And a few months later, Singapore decided to pull out. Singapore is that very busy city right on the end of that long peninsula we're talking about. And it's more of a city state there, but they decided that they just didn't want to, not a big deal, but Malaysia is still there, and that's what it is. And there are volunteers that went to Sabah and Sarawak as well. By the way, Malaysia, or Peace Corps rather, is no longer going to Malaysia, because they have done so well that the Peace Corps is in the business of supplying mid-level skills, and they've already got they've covered their ground with enough teachers, enough nurses, enough businessmen, and so I think it's around 1985 or 87 that Peace Corps had their yearly get together with some of the Malaysian officials there, and said, well, you know, they got together at the yearly, and they said, well, we've given you some nurses and given you the teachers, give you some engineers. What sort of skill level do you need now? Malaysia said, you know, what we really need now are software engineers.
Oh, okay.
To which Peace Corps, I think, very wisely said, I think you can hire those people in the open market. I don't know if that's actually true, but that's my story on it. And I think that's wise, because actually Peace Corps is supposed to be pretty much a people-to-people interaction, whereas if you get a software engineer, well, that's people to machine sort of thing, and it needs to be done, but that's not the level that Peace Corps wants to relate to.
Yeah.
So this is
Just a quick question, Alan. Did your wife also teach at the same school?
Yeah, she did, but not at this school, because remember,
I know.
I was still single at that time.
Oh, okay. All right.
Now, really excitement came out of Malaysia, and these are slides taken back about 64, 65. There are several other things that I did there, I did other projects which the kids liked. We went on several bicycle rides. We took at least one ride from our school down to Malacca, which I think was probably about 15, 20 miles down. Malacca is a long-time Dutch state. It's really just a city state on the western edge of that peninsula we're talking about. I found some movies from a local library that I could show, and they hadn't seen many movies. And I did have a skills forum, which it was a field test actually out in there. What I did was this: I realized that there was an English military base sort of right behind the school, but they pretty much stayed themselves. I never saw them around town, but I knew they were there. But they just never got out. It's just the total opposite of Peace Corps volunteers. They just could totally stay to themselves. But through another PCV, I managed to approach them and get some of their skilled people to come out and show some of the high school, some of the Tunku Besar. The school is called the Tunku Besar School here. And they came out and described some of their skills. a little bit of carpentry, just one Sunday or one Saturday afternoon or one Saturday all day. They set up booths where kids could see and learn about some of these skills, which we'd normally have in a vocational school, but this was definitely not scholastic or technical school at all, vocational school. This was totally academic. And and they had some welding over there and plumbing and a few electrical things and all that kind of stuff. And, that's what they did there. And actually, I taught some extra classes on Saturdays as well, just to review some of the things and answer some of the questions. They actually appreciated that because they were really, they're very conscientious about learning as well as they could, so they could do very well on what they call the certificate of education, the higher school education.
Okay.
What really developed with regard to Malaysia, however, they invited me back for a reunion because I had sort of been out of touch with them for a while. And so I went back, Kathy and I went back in November 2019, and they really organized. And,
Beautiful.
And this was the gathering just in one of the resorts there. When I thought about gathering in Malaysia resort, well, they've advanced so much, they have quite a number of resorts, and this was a very nice resort, actually. But even nicer than that, there was about 65 of the students and there's some spouses and children, but that got together for this
Beautiful.
very interesting lunch here. And you can see some familiar people down here, I guess a little bit. There we are.
All right. Is that your wife?
Yeah, it sure is. That's Kathy right there.
All right.
In fact, actually, I think that's probably going to be the only picture of her in this series of slides here. But it was more than more than just this lunch, but they took us out for a number of times in smaller groups out to various local restaurants, and I could do that. Okay, I'm running out of time here a little bit. Let's see. So,
well, it was really interesting. Tell us a little bit about Uganda.
Yeah, I thought that's what I do here.
Yeah.
For a minute. Okay. Okay, let's see if we can make this work. Okay, this is some pictures for a short time. Actually, Uganda in East Africa, that Kenya or Uganda is that just inland from Kenya is part of the East African trio of countries there. And I've been back there 4 or maybe 5 times. I'm almost lost track here, but
Wow.
this is I went back in 2009. I went back that was the 3rd time I'd been there to do a workshop for science teachers on setting up and repairing equipment, not teaching science, but actually doing making sure they do the equipment. So either teachers or some of their technicians, most of the high schools there are blessed with having a lab manager. A technician can set up and take down the lab equipment. Most American high schools that I've seen don't have anybody like that, or whatever. That's one of the things the teacher himself, him or herself, has to do by moving the equipment in and out and fixing it and all that. So we had that. And explanation here. This was Karl Katsu. He's also an RPCV. By that we mean returned Peace Corps volunteer. We don't call them former volunteers or ex Peace Corps volunteers. We call them return. We've returned home. In a sense, we're still a volunteer. We volunteer time as we are doing right now. We're still a volunteer in that sense. And this is Jeeb Romashana, which he defines as my counterpart, our counterpart. This is Kathy was there as well, but this is right in front of Jeeb's new house, the brand new house here. And he was the assistant headmaster there, and I identified with him pretty well, actually, at the school that we were at. The school is called Chitunga High School. It's down in the southwestern part of Uganda, pretty down pretty close to Rwanda, actually. And yeah, here I got a little labeling here. And of course, the other crazy guy looking there is Alan, me. And this is the picture of Jeeb in front of the sign. This is something he's done since I was in Uganda. He was a biology and geography teacher, actually. They teach a marvelous set of courses on geography, something we kind of skip over in American high schools now, but he does a great job of that. And he was teaching in a government school, the town he's in, Uganda, that's his hometown, and that's where he, so when school sort of fell apart, he went back to the teaching there. But several of the teachers were really kind of fed up with the poor way that school was run. So they started their own school called the Alliance Secondary School in Ibanda, and did really well. And in fact, he did so well that he went on to establish this school right in the same town, the College of Commerce. So practical sort of things for the graduates from his school could go to this one here.
Right.
And in fact, he also established a technical college of the skills I was talking about earlier, you know, for carpentry and electrical and this sort of thing. And eventually, he donated about 2/3 of the farm that he had inherited from his father right there in Ibanda, just a few miles outside, to build a university.
Wow.
So now he's got, now he has a university right there. And he got some of his skilled help that he had trained in his technical school there to build some of the buildings for him. And so he's been a tremendously generous fellow. And one last thing is Jeeb, he was really a very personable guy. We heard in what was it, in 2012, that his two brothers and sisters wanted to give him a free trip over to visit us in the US. And he said that he sent us a letter and said they want to send me over for 2 weeks. And I said, no, Jeeb, if you're making that big trip, you got to stay for 4 weeks. So he has time to really settle in and all that sort of thing, which he did actually. And we had a marvelous visit.
Fantastic. Wonderful.
That was in April of that year. And so to give him a little bit of American culture, we organized a regular Thanksgiving complete with the cranberry sauce and the turkey and all that kind of stuff, even it's in April. And we invited over a number of people, including a few fellow RPCVs, to have a very nice dinner with Jeeb. And of course, being close to Washington, at that time we lived close to Gettysburg. So we went down to Washington and gave him the usual 2 or 3 day tour of what Washington, D.C. is all about.
All right.
So that's about the end of what I'm going to send some of this money or some of this time over to Glenn.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Alan. That was a wonderful presentation, and must have been a wonderful experience.
Yeah, it really was. And my wife was also teaching in that school. Just the last moment. And for more information, you go to the Peace Corps itself on this website, or you can go to the NPCA, the Peace Corps Association, which is not a government, it's not a government organization, its own independent organization, sort of an alumni organization of RPCVs.
Okay, we'll let Glenn handle that phase of it. Okay,
Sure.
So we have Glenn Bloomhurst here. Glenn, we are really happy to have you on the show to represent the Peace Corps and represent your Peace Corps Association. By the way, Glenn, let me ask you a question. You ever heard of a guy named Harris Wofford?
Well, certainly a senator from Pennsylvania and honorary member of the NPCA and one of our advisory council members until his passing a few years ago.
Yeah, right.
And an early architect of the Peace Corps itself.
Yes, he was. Harris Wofford also was a close friend and ally of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, and a friend of mine. I knew Harris Wofford. I just had to bring him up because he and I both worked under Governor Robert B. Casey Sr. And the governor's Harris Wofford was the Secretary of Labor and Industry, and he was appointed to fill a senatorial position that had been taken by the then governor. But he's a very special guy, and I know he was very close, along with Sergeant Shriver and some other folks with the association. Okay, all right. You have the stage. Give us some information. First of all, I want to hear about your experience in the Peace Corps, and then I want to hear about your association. But you mentioned Guatemala and some other places that you've been with you and your wife. I'm really looking forward to hearing that. Let me turn it over to you, sir. Present in your own way.
Thank you very much, sir. And I didn't bring any slides today, but I hope it will be very descriptive in telling you about my time in Guatemala and about the work of the National Peace Corps Association. Let me just first say, I came from a family of national service veterans. My dad was a Marine. My brother also had served in the Army about the same time I was in the Peace Corps, and my uncle had served in Vietnam. So we came from a family of national service, and I want to emphasize that Peace Corps itself is national service as well. It's a way that we can serve our country. It's different from military service, of course, but it is a way that we can use the talents and abilities that we've been given to serve others and to serve our country, because the goals that Alan outlined there before, they really are about helping make not only the America a better place, but the world a better place too, and about friendship and understanding. So I did go to Guatemala with no cultural or language skills at all. That's something of interest. I did not speak really a single word of Spanish to say much of beyond adios and hola. So, that language skill is something that you pick up as part of the training and part of your immersion in life and culture in another country. And when you learn a language of someone else, you learn so much about them as well. And you learn a lot about the culture and about the country and the history. And as I went to Guatemala and learned the language and started being able to interact with people and learn more about their lives and their history, I learned a lot also about, for example, U.S. foreign policy in Central America and in Guatemala in particular. I learned a lot about U.S. colonialism in other countries. I learned a lot about political issues that I was not aware of. And from personal stories from individuals who would share with me their experience with a 30-year civil war in Guatemala, for example, and the economic hardship that they were enduring, and why so many of them would choose to really just sacrifice so much to try to make it through Mexico and up to the United States to find work, to send back funds to their families in Guatemala. So, really having those firsthand experiences helped us understand the world better. And now understand on this side of it, why, for example, Guatemalans and Salvadoreños and others fled their country many times and fled civil wars and fled violence and fled poverty, and to try to find an opportunity to provide for their families back in Guatemala. And it really helps us understand much better how our world is and how we are neighbors to people, if you will, around the world, despite what country they come from. So I was, I had a wonderful Peace Corps experience. Back then they said the slogan was, "It's the toughest job you'll ever love," and it is. It has some ups and downs, peaks and valleys, but by the grace of God and just patience and perseverance, so you can make it through those. And there's illnesses sometimes, and there's cultural frustrations, or learning the language is a frustration sometimes. But in the end, it really makes a volunteer a better person, because they have learned to overcome those obstacles, and they've learned to work around the challenges and be patient and persevere, and really be comfortable with ambiguity and all the things that we deal with as a Peace Corps volunteer. We also form lifelong friendships. I have friends from Guatemala that I'm in contact on a daily basis, and those friendships were forged 30 years ago now, and they're vibrant and alive to this day, thanks to social media in many ways, because I've only been able to go back to Guatemala about 5 or 6 times, but
Only 5 or 6 times.
It's
sounds like
close.
quite a bit to me.
It's much closer than Malaysia though. So,
Yeah, I hear
but
you.
those friendships last forever, and that's really what really brings about greater peace and understanding in our world is when we understand others from a different perspective than our own that we were raised in or born into. And so I've been very blessed by that opportunity, and really has impacted not just me, but my family. My parents went to visit me when I was in Guatemala.
All right.
I had my dad out there, behind an oxen-drawn plow, plowing a field, so he figured out what it was like. And it's not sitting on a tractor and driving it. So it really created, I think, a great appreciation by my extended family as well of the world that we live in. And my parents and my brother, veterans, as I said, of military service, are
Yeah.
peace activists to this day, very
Oh.
adamant about it because of their experience. So that's my experience in a nutshell. Working with farmers and small groups of community members to help make projects possible, working with them, and we were
Right.
able to get a lot done. And I gained so much more out of it. We always say we get more out of it than we were able to give.
Your major in college was agriculture.
Yes, sir.
Correct. And so I'm interpreting that to mean that you probably was raised on a farm. I think you also said that. So Dad was not unfamiliar with farming. So you said you had your dad who instead of the tractor, you had, what was it, an ox or something? What was that?
Yeah, well, we had a small farm, just very small, with a small old tractor and a couple of things to piddle around on there, and some animals to take care of just to keep us out of trouble while my parents worked in town. But I had a degree in agriculture, but really, this Guatemala is tropical agriculture, and it's farming on hillsides, steep
Oh,
hillsides, and it's with many times with just a hoe or shovel to farm with, and in some cases, if there is a plow involved, it's a tree trunk cut into a plow and pulled by a pair of oxen. So yes, the farming systems are very different from what I grew up with and what I learned about during my service in Guatemala. Very, very different, and the products were different. I grew up familiar with corn and soybeans and hogs and cattle, and in Guatemala we were working with mostly citrus trees and some tropical vegetables, but avocado, for example, also as a fruit, much different from what I learned about in the U.S.
wow. Uh, and now, one thing I forgot to ask Alan and both of you, you're going into countries where you don't really know the language. Uh, did you have interpreters? I mean, how did you get along day to day and get things done, not knowing the language?
Well, in
Well,
my case, we had, I think, as Alan mentioned, a pretty intensive 3-month training where the focal point was
Okay.
on language. I went in
Yeah.
speaking zero Spanish, and I now am fluent in Spanish as a result of my time in Peace Corps and beyond. And
Fantastic.
but you learn more just by immersion. There's some classroom training and teaching that the Peace Corps provides during that 3 months of training, but then you're kind of set out to do what you can on your own. And in that immersion process, you have to learn how to speak and understand, and a lot of sign language if you don't know the word, or a lot of patience on the part of the people that we're talking to so they understand us. And again, that creates a greater sense of appreciation on our behalf of individuals around the world who speak a second language or a third language or 4 languages sometimes. And here we are struggling just to learn a second language while so many people around the world speak multiple languages. It's a blessing to be able to see how we can communicate in so many different ways.
yes, I wanted to add to that actually that when I stayed with Ozzy's family there, it turns out that I'd gone through Malay, and it was a fairly simple language. Still, it was foreign to me, and that was quite an advance for my speaking Malay. Is this 14-year-old, and that would be, this is after I've gotten the basics under, but he introduced to me a lot of the things, both of the language and of the culture as well. And I understand now that Peace Corps has discovered that, and so I think a number of volunteers working overseas, in fact, are assigned to live with a family there, and the Peace Corps pays the family a small per diem or something, to pay for the food and all that sort of thing. But that's a great source of cultural interchange, is being able to live with a family. And I just got into that myself just by a stroke of luck. That's all.
That sounds like great, and you both have developed lifelong friends out of this. That's just absolutely wonderful. Really interesting. My mother-in-law is Mexican American, uh, and so and let me I just like to throw that out. And my wife participated in the domestic Peace Corps. She spent a couple of years in New Orleans setting up a daycare center. So my wife's watching this show also. But
Yeah.
Well,
anyway,
thank you to her for her service. I think that was probably in AmeriCorps or Teach for America maybe, and that is a form of national service as well too. So
oh
thank you
yeah,
all for your service.
she worked for after she had served in New Orleans. Then she worked as a trainer in Washington D.C. In the Peace Corps. She also participated in a program called Crossroads Africa. I don't know if you ever heard of it. But a man named Richardson, who was a Black historian, had a program in which he would send students to the nation of West African nation of Ghana, doing the same kind of thing. But I got to give John F. Kennedy some credit for this. This whole idea. I mean, the whole servicing, not what your country has done for you, but what you can do for your country
Right.
and other countries. So JFK had a lot to do with this. Sorry to disrupt you, yeah, but it sounded like you had a an experience that was really become a part of you. Now tell us about your association. I think you have a little something to present to show us in regards to that and how it functions and what is it and that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, one of the most important things you gain from serving in the Peace Corps is a lot of friends that also serve side by side with you, both in your host country as well as volunteers themselves from different parts of the country and that represent different parts of society. And those are lifelong friendships as well. But with that comes a community. There's a community, if you will, of 240,000 now that have served as Peace Corps volunteers since 1961. And like Alan and I, for example, we're close knit. We when we run into each other and realize that we were both Peace Corps volunteers, there's an immediate connection and a camaraderie,
Right.
and so that sense of community is really developed by National Peace Corps Association at the center of that community, connecting us and keeping us informed and keeping us engaged. Our mission at National Peace Corps Association is to champion lifelong commitment to those Peace Corps ideals. And so Kennedy and Shriver, as you know, were idealists, and
yes, sir.
and we who joined the Peace Corps, and as a result, I would say, of our Peace Corps experience, are committed to lifelong service, and we're very idealist, and we really have tremendous impact in the world after our Peace Corps service. The Peace Corps is just 2 years, and in my case, maybe 3 years. But life can give us many, many more years of service to others. And at National Peace Corps Association, we help organize our community and mobilize around different causes. Some of those, for example, climate change. We are working to help our community be a leader in addressing climate change, racial justice. Right. Immigrations and refugee issues. You may have seen the Return Peace Corps volunteer community responding when the situation in Afghanistan created a mass exodus of refugees. Return Peace Corps volunteers right now, as we speak, around the country, resettle those Afghan refugees. Former Return Peace Corps volunteers are also, for example, working to help even secure the safety of Ukrainians who are leaving Ukraine with an expected 5 million refugees coming out of Ukraine. Return Peace Corps volunteers are going to be very much involved there as well. 3,500 people have served in the Peace Corps in Ukraine alone over 30 years. So think about all those friendships that we have there. Many Ukrainian returned volunteers worried about their family and friends in Ukraine right now, but ready to help with any type of humanitarian assistance that might be necessary. So, that's what National Peace Corps is really all about, is championing that lifelong service to others. We organize, we have 180 affiliate groups scattered around the country. We advocate for Peace Corps and its federal funding, which surprisingly is never assured. We never can count for sure on Congress to fully fund Peace Corps. So we have to actually get out there and as citizen advocates and make sure Congress knows to fund Peace Corps. And so we're involved in that as well as part of our community.
Don't you have a slide or something you wanted to present in regards to the association?
I could not get my slide up, sir, so I don't
okay.
have it available yet.
That's all right, but yeah, you're presenting the information. Now, if a person, so do you accept donations from individuals or the organization for your association?
Well, certainly, National Peace Corps Association as a 501c3 organization does. We actually, our mission is supported by the generous donations of community members around the country, both returned Peace Corps volunteers as well as others who have not been in the Peace Corps. Just to clarify, separate from the federal agency, which is federally funded
Sure.
for the volunteer service. We are not federally funded. We don't receive any federal funding, so we rely on the generous donations of individuals in the United States who would like to support our work.
Now, if someone wants to donate, how do they do that? If someone
Well,
wants to donate to the association.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Alan put up a website link there earlier. You can go to www.peacecorpsconnect, all spelled together, PEACECORPS Connect, CONNECT.org, Peace Corps Connect. A shorter way to get there, if you can remember this though, is rpcv.org. And that RPCV, as Alan has mentioned a couple of times, stands for Returned Peace Corps Volunteer, RPCV. So rpcv.org is our website. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk about that and invite anyone who would like to support our organization to do so. That's very kind of you.
Well, it's very important. That's what we're here for, to support people and organizations that are doing the kind of work that you're doing. And I'm just very pleased about that. Go ahead, Alan.
Say, Glenn, I just got a note to indicate from Chris that in fact he does have your video. So if you wanted to, you could just tell Chris to go ahead and show that video.
Wonderful. Well, there is a video that we could share. It's very brief. And just to mention that Peace Corps, as many of you know, 2 years ago when the pandemic really hit hard, had to pull volunteers out of the countries where they were serving around the world. And for almost 2 years now, there have been no volunteers serving. There have been returned Peace Corps volunteers serving around the world doing great things, but the Peace Corps itself has not been able to field volunteers. Now they're expecting to send out the first volunteers by the end of this month, hopefully to Dominican Republic and one other country, I believe. And I think we have a video here that comes from Dominican Republic about the volunteers.
Go ahead.
Know that we are so excited to see them again or to meet them for the first time. Peace Corps is here. When I say Peace Corps, I'm talking about Peace Corps as a whole. I'm talking about headquarters. I'm talking about post staff. I'm talking about our community partners. I'm talking about our host families. We are all here, and we're really excited to collaborate with them and have them form part of our team.
The communities that we've worked in for so many years are really ready to see volunteers come back, and they understand the importance and the connections that have been made. That's where our heart and soul is at.
Bueno, pues contaba que de las cosas que esperamos para los nuevos voluntarios es el desarrollo de capacidades tanto a nivel de las organizaciones en lo que es el área de negocio, que Cuerpo de Paz tiene muy bien definido ese proceso de transformación y de formación en jóvenes. También la consolidación y todo el apoyo que necesita de acompañamiento, lo que son nuestras comunidades, de que no imponemos, de que no desarrollamos grupos, más bien los empoderamos, ellos crean sus propios espacios.
While a difficult time, it's been an amazing time for our team. Traditionally, We had 2 intakes of volunteers every year, and so everyone was always preparing for the next group that was coming in, right? And so we seldom had a chance to step back and reflect on what was going well and what we'd like to improve on. And so this pause has offered us that opportunity to improve our programs and really focus on how we want volunteers to see us as one whole team, not just the office team, but the volunteers being part of the team as well.
There are multiple changes that we are going to experience in my position and also for the volunteers in their communities. And in my position, where we have the responsibility to make sure that we set the right expectations and explain the reality of what they are going to experience in those communities, is going to be a challenge. We need to make sure that we educate them and train them correctly so that they know what to expect.
We were visiting communities just to see how the context of people, and we really worked about how they are doing. And that's something that it's more than a job. It's personal. Volunteers connect with the community. We connect with people with the work that we do. And that's the best part for me.
Necesitan primeramente humildad. Relacionarse con los niños, porque a los niños les encanta que venga personas de otro lugar.
I am really excited about volunteers coming. Dominican culture is really rich, and we want to share what we are, who we are, or what we have.
I'm excited that they're going to see the changes that we've made, the growth that we've had during this time.
I want our student and also our volunteer knows is we're ready.
That we are going to be here 100% waiting for them, supporting them, learning with them, and moving forward with them too.
Communities are waiting for them. The Dominican Republic needs people like you, volunteers, to come and serve.
Les exhorto que nos sigan ayudando. Muchas gracias y estaremos aquí siempre cuando ustedes lo quieran.
Hey, that was great.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And I'm hoping the people that tune in to the Richard James Show will donate to your organization, because you're doing good work. And when you talk about global warming, which is a extremely important, because we're talking about the life of and existence of our planet. You know, many people who do not want to agree that it exists, but I'm happy to see that your organization is taking that up as a cause, because our very survival depends on it. Yes.
It's the cause that our community cares the most about, and we feel that we're in the best position to have an impact on, and we're very committed to doing our part, as we would say, as a community.
Well, we're coming down to the end of the show now, and I want to thank both of you, Alan Olson, Glenn Bloomshurst, for first of all, for your good work. We always try to support and raise up our military for their support. But what about our Peace Corps? What about those who are raising up peace and bringing individuals together in an appreciation of different cultures and different languages, and also an understanding that many people need support. They need volunteer help. And the great thing from what I hear, Alan, from what you're saying, is that it's not a matter of going in and doing it for folks, but teaching them how to do for themselves, to go and educate people in terms of what they can do. Both of you going into these countries with degrees in agriculture and degrees in engineering, and sharing that experience and sharing that knowledge and that information, so one day a country like maybe Malaysia will be able to do it for themselves. I think that's more important than doing it for them. And so I take my hat off to you and salute you for what you're doing, and just thank you. And if you'd like to have a couple of brief, closing remarks, I'd like to hear something from you. We only have a couple of minutes, maybe a minute, two apiece, and also for Glenn Briggs, from Alan and from Glenn. Give us a closing remark, please, sir.
Well, I certainly have enjoyed my Peace Corps associations, and it's more than just a country being it, but it was a glorious experience going back to visit Malaysia, how to see how much it's developed and how successful my former students have been there. and how well they've done themselves. Curious enough, this is one of the good sides of Facebook, the way they pulled that group of students together.
Yes, sir.
Through several Facebook pages. And
we don't have much time, sir.
So it was a glorious experience, and I thank them very much for that. Glenn?
Thank you. And Glenn.
I'd just like to thank the Richard James Show and The Voice for having us on this morning. Really a pleasure. Thank you so much for the great questions about the Peace Corps, and hope what we've shared will enlighten and encourage somebody maybe to join the Peace Corps. I'm going to be visiting Alan here in the spring and in a in-person event, and hopefully we'll have some visitors that heard this show will show up and join us. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you both for your good work. Thank you both for participating on the show. And let me just say to my listeners as I close out that I do have a business called African Paradise. And I'm located in Lebanon, Pennsylvania. Here's a beautiful picture that was taken by Mr. Alan Olson as a volunteer to help me with that. And these are the things that we sell. We do believe in fair trade, and the things that we sell, the people who create it also get a part of whatever is made. So come down to see us at 35 South 8th Street, Lebanon, Pennsylvania, and visit the Richard James Show. So I want to say to you, thank you so much. May God bless you, and may heaven smile upon you. And I look forward to hearing and seeing from you next week. Thank you, gentlemen. Let's do it again. Take care now.
Okay, thank you. You're very welcome.
Thank you again for tuning in to the Richard James Show. Our African and our African American programs are set up to educate you on what's going on in this world. We thank you for taking out the time to listen. Let's hear from you sometime also. So this is your neighbor and your friend signing off. Until I see you again next week and hear from you again next week. So long. God bless.